Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my beautiful hot messes. My name is Mistress Lavender, and today I'll be reading The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F by Mark Manson. I'm on Chapter 8, The Importance of Saying No, on page 162. And if you don't know who I am or what I'm talking about, you might as well click the first video. But if you do, are you ready? Somehow, after years of travel, it was in perhaps the most un American of places where I first experienced a particular flavor of freedom, the ability to say whatever I thought or felt without the fear of repercussion. It was a strange form of liberation through accepting rejection. And as someone who had been starved of this kind of blunt expression most of his life, first by an emotionally repressed family life, then later by a meticulously constructed false display of confidence, I got drunk on it. Like it was the finest damn vodka I had ever had. The month I spent in St. Petersburg went on in a blur, and by the end, I didn't want to leave. Travel is a fantastic self development tool because it extradicates you from the values of your culture and shows you that another society can live with entirely different values and can still function and not hate themselves. This exposure to different cultural values and metrics then forces you to re examine what seems obvious in your own life and to consider that perhaps it's not necessarily the best way to live. In this case, Russia had me re examining the bull essy, fake nice communication that is common in Anglo culture and asking myself if that wasn't somehow making us more insecure around each other and worse at intimacy. I remember discussing this dynamic with my Russian teacher one day, and he had an interesting theory. Having lived under communism for so many generations, with little to no economic opportunity and caged by a culture of fear, Russian society found the most viable currency to be trust. And to build trust, you have to be honest. That means when things suck, you say so openly and without apology. People's display of unpleasant honesty were rewarded for the simple fact that they were necessary for survival. You had to know whom you could rely on and whom you couldn't, and you needed to know quickly. But in the free West, my Russian teacher continued, there existed an abundance of economic opportunity, so much economic opportunity that it became far more valuable to present yourself in a certain way, even if it is also that false than it to actually be that way. Trust lost its value. Appearances and salesmanship became more adventurous forms of expression. Knowing a lot of people superficially was more beneficial than knowing a few people closely. This is why it became the norm in Western cultures to smile and say polite things even when you don't feel like it, to tell little white lies and agree with someone who you actually don't agree with. This is why people learn to pretend to be friends with people they don't actually like, to buy things they don't actually want. The economic system promotes such deception. The downside of this is that you never know in the West if you can completely trust the person you're talking to. Sometimes this is the case even among good friends or family members. There is such a pressure to be in the West to be liked that what? There is such pressure in the West to be liked that people often reconfigure their entire personality depending on the person they're dealing with. Rejection makes your life better. As an extension of our positive slash consumer culture, many of us have been indoctrinated with the belief that we should try to be as inherently accepting and affirmative as possible. This is a cornerstone of many of the so called positive thinking books. Open yourself up to opportunities, be accepting, say yes to everything and everyone, and so on. But we need to reject something. Otherwise, we stand for nothing. If nothing is better or more desirable than anything else, then we are empty and our life is meaningless. We are without values and therefore we live our life without any purpose. The avoidance of rejection, both giving and receiving it, is often sold to us in a way to make ourselves feel better. But avoiding rejection gives us short term pleasure by making us rudderless and directionless in the long term. To truly appreciate something, you must confine yourself to it. There's a certain level of joy and meaning that you reach in life only when you've spent decades investing in a single relationship, a single craft, a single career. And you cannot achieve those decades of investment without rejecting the alternatives. The act of choosing a value for yourself requires rejecting alternative values. If I'm if I choose to make my marriage the most important part of my life, that means I'm probably choosing not to make sea-filled hooker orgies an important part of my life. If I'm choosing to judge myself based on my ability to have open and accepting friendships, that means I'm rejecting trashing my friends behind their backs. These are healthy decisions, yet they require rejection at every turn. The point is this: we all must give an F about something in order to value something. And to value something, we must reject what that something is not. To value X, we must reject non X. That rejection is an inherent and necessary part of maintaining our values and therefore our identity. We are defined by what we choose to reject, and if we choose nothing, perhaps in fear of being rejected by something ourselves, we essentially have no identity at all. The desire to avoid rejection at all costs, to avoid confrontation and conflict, the desire to attempt to accept everything equally and to make everything cohere and harmonize is a deep and subtle form of entitlement. Entitled people, okay, I'm gonna move this. Entitled people, because they feel as though they deserve to feel great all the time, avoid rejecting anything because doing so might make them or someone else feel bad. And because they refuse to reject anything, they live a valueless, pleasure driven, and self absorbed life. All they give a F about is sustaining the high a little bit longer, to avoid the inevitable failures of their life, to pretend the suffering away. Rejection is an important and crucial life skill. Nobody wants to be stuck in a relationship that isn't making them happy. Nobody wants to be stuck in a business doing work they hate and don't believe in. Nobody wants to feel that they can't say what they really mean. Yet people choose these things all the time. Honesty is a natural human craving, but part of having honesty in our lives is becoming comfortable with saying and hearing the word no. In this way, rejection actually makes our relationships better and our emotional lives healthier. Boundaries. Once upon a time, there were two youngsters, a boy and a girl. Their families hated each other. The boy snuck into the party. The boy snuck into a party hosted by the girl's family because he was kind of a D. The girl sees the boy, and Angel sings so sweetly to her lady parts that she instantly falls in love with him. Just like that. And he sneaks into her garden and they decide to get married the next day. Because, that's totally typical, especially when your parents want to murder each other. Jump ahead a few days. Their families find out that the marriage and throw a S fit. Marsuccio dies. The girl is so upset that she drinks a poison that will put her in sleep for 2 days. But unfortunately, the young couple hasn't learned the ins and outs of good marital communication yet. And the young girl totally forgets to mention something about it to her new husband. The young man therefore mistakes his new wife's self induced coma for suicide. He then totally loses his marbles and he commits suicide, thinking he's going to be with her in the afterlife or some S. But then she wakes up after her 2 day coma only to learn that her new husband has committed suicide. So she has the exact same idea and, and unalives herself too. The end. Romeo and Juliet is synonymous with romance in our culture today. It is seen as the love story in English speaking culture, an emotional ideal to live up to. Yet when you really get down to what happens in the story, these kids are absolutely out of their effing minds. And they just killed themselves to prove it. It's suspected by many scholars that Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet not to celebrate romance, but rather to satironize it. Ooh, what does that mean? Hold on. A word I don't know. I'm gonna underline it. Underline it. To show how absolutely nutty it was. He didn't mean for the play to be a glorification of love. In fact, he meant it to be the opposite: a big flashing neon sign blinking "Keep Out" with police tape around it saying "Do not cross." For most of human history, romantic love was not celebrated as it is now. In fact, up until the mid 19th century or so, love was seen as unnecessary and potentially dangerous psychological impediment to the more important things to life. Like farming, well, or marrying a guy with a lot of sheep. Young people were often forcibly steered clear of their romantic passions in favor of practical economic marriages that would yield stability for both of them and their families. But today we all get brain boners for that kind of bat crazy love. It dominates our culture, and the more dramatic, the better. Whether it's Ben Affleck working to destroy an asteroid to save the Earth for the girl he loves, or Mel Gibson murdering hundreds of Englishmen. What? Hold on, because oh my skin. Okay, there we go. I don't know if this is gonna work, but hundreds of Englishmen fantasizing about his ardent M's wife while being tortured to death, or that 11 chick giving giving up her immortality to be with Aragon in Lord of the Rings, or stupid romantic comedies where Jim Fallon forgoes his Red Sox playoff tickets because Drew Barrymore has like needs or something. What? It was this sort of romantic love where cocaine, then as the culture we all know, like Tony Montana and Scarface, burying our faces in a effing mountain of it, screaming, "Say hello to my little friend." The problem is that we're finding out romantic love is is kind of like cocaine, like frighteningly similar to cocaine, like stimulates the same parts of your brain as cocaine, like it gets you high, it makes you feel good for a while, but creates as many problems as it solves, as does cocaine. Many elements of romantic love that we pursue, the dramatic and drizzling emotional displays of affection, the topsy turvy ups and downs, aren't healthy and genuine displays of love. In fact, they're often just another form of entitlement playing out through people's relationship. I know this makes me sound like a downer. Seriously, what kind of guy S's on romantic love? But hear me out. The truth is that there are healthy forms of love and unhealthy forms of love. Unhealthy love is based on two people trying to escape their problems through their emotions for each other. In other words, they're using each other as an escape. Healthy love is based on two people acknowledging and addressing their own problems with each other's support. The difference between a healthy and unhealthy relationship comes down to two things. One, how well each other in the relationship accepts responsibility, and two, the willingness of each person to both reject and be rejected by their partner. Any Anywhere there is an unhealthy or toxic relationship, there will be a poor or porous sense of responsibility on both sides, and there will be an inability to give or to receive rejection. Whether there is a healthy or loving relationship, there will be clear boundaries between the two people and their values, and there will be an open avenue of giving and receiving rejection when necessary. By boundaries, I mean del- delineation, girl, I need to get my vocabulary up, between two people's responsibilities for their own problems. People in a healthy relationship with strong boundaries will take responsibility for their own values and problems, and not to take responsibility for their partner's values and problems. People in a toxic relationship with poor or no boundaries will regularly avoid responsibility for their own problems and or take responsibility for their partner's problems. What do poor boundaries look like? Here are some examples. You can't go out with your friends without me. You know how jealous I get. You have to stay home with me. My coworkers are idiots. They always make me late to meetings because I have to tell them how to do their jobs. I can't believe you made me feel so stupid in front of my own sister. Never disagree with me in front of her again. I'd love to take that job in Milwaukee, but my mother would never forgive me for moving so far away. I can date you, but can you not tell my friend Sydney? She gets really insecure when I have a boyfriend and she doesn't. In each scenario, the person is either taking responsibility for problems slash emotions that are not theirs, or demanding that somebody else take responsibility for their problems and emotions. Ooh. In general, entitled people fall in two traps of the relationships. Either they expect other people to take responsibility for theirs. I wanted a nice, relaxing weekend at home. You should have known that and canceled your plans. Or they take too much responsibility for other people's problems. She lost her job again, and it's probably my fault because I wasn't supportive of her as I could have been. I'm going to help her rewrite her resume tomorrow. Mm. Entitled people adopt these strategies in their relationships, as with everything, to help avoid accepting responsibility for their own problems. As a result, their relationships are fragile and fake products of avoiding inner pain rather than embracing a genuine appreciation or adoration of their partner. La la la. This goes not just for romantic relationships, by the way, but also for family relationships and friendships. An overbearing mother may take responsibility for every problem in her children's lives. Her own entitlement then encourages her entitlement in her children as they grow up to believe other people should be responsible for their problems. This is why the problems in your romantic relationships always eerily resemble the problems in your parents' relationship. Ooh. When you have murky areas of responsibility for your own emotions and actions, slash areas where it's unclear who is responsible for what, whose fault is what, why you're doing what you're doing, you never develop strong values for yourself. Your only value becomes making your partner happy, or your only value becomes my partner making you happy, or your partner making you happy. This is self defeating, of course. And relationships characterized by much muckiness usually goes down like the Hindenburg with all the drama and fireworks. People can't solve your problems for you, and they shouldn't try because that won't make you happy. You can't solve other people's problems for them either because that likewise won't make them happy. The mark of an unhealthy relationship is two people trying to solve each other's problems in order to feel good about themselves. Ooh, rather than a healthy relationship when two people can solve their own problems in order to make themselves feel good about each other. I'm messing up a lot. You already saw, but I'm still gonna post it because I don't really care. I'm living my best life and I'm learning. So boom. But thank you for joining me, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you next video. I stopped at page 172. I'm gonna start at the setting of the setting of proper boundaries doesn't mean you can't help or support your problem. Or okay, well, the sentence is long, but you'll see me next episode. Bye. I hope you have a great day.